there are going to be a lot of people who point to um, the least common denominator and say, when Nick was calling the plays, the Eagles sucked, and when Shane was calling the plays, the Eagles were really good. Um, and look, I mean, that's tough to swim against. That's tough to be the salmon swimming upstream against that stuff. The context is obviously the game plan is there. Nick puts it together. That's his favorite part of the job. All these things are pre-planned. You know, the openers, the third down menu, uh, the 2 minute offense, the hurry up offense. That's what the big play call sheet is about. Um, and then you're obviously going through the menu of plays. So um, it's 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 ballsy.
Appreciate you streaming on in here on Birds 365. Jody McDonald, Jeff Kerr, gonna sit in the co-host chair for hour number 2 because Johnny Mac, who's with us now, has to get over to the NovaCare complex. Got some more availability today, but I want to ask you about yesterday's availability, John. Handful of players and Nick Sirianni, one of which was Fletcher Cox, who we had not heard from yet during this offseason. Fletcher, of course, had the release of his contract earlier this year, almost immediate re-signing. Eagles are taking a dead cap hit now, but now get to go on a year-to-year basis with Fletcher going forward. Did he talk at all about there was a period of time where he was a free agent and could have gone somewhere else? He give you a take on how close that was, or was this something that was just a matter of working out paperwork?
Yeah, it was more of the working out paperwork part of it. Now, it was interesting because, when the Eagles were facing this deadline where they had to pay Fletcher a large bonus and didn't want to do it, and they wanted to reset the contract. And I think all the work was done prior to that, and they were working up to the deadline. They couldn't come to the conclusion, and obviously he was, from a bookkeeping standpoint, released. Now, I think the Eagles had already worked out with Todd France that he was coming back. And that's when I was told when it was released, he's going to be back. But it did take about 48 hours. I think it took a little bit longer than most of us thought. Then you start to think, well, when you're free, you're free. It's not the old adage in show business. It's show business. It's not show friends. Once you're out there, if somebody calls up and says, "Hey, we'll give you this," and um, he could have left, but it was clear indication he didn't want to leave. He didn't expect to leave. But the Eagles gave him $14 million as a 31-year-old player who, in theory, is most people say is declining. That's a lot of money. I don't know because of his name. Maybe he could have gotten it somewhere else, but Todd France probably already did that homework as well previously. And everything worked out for Fletcher and the Eagles. I do think he's happy. And I do think he sees, sort of a second phase to his career in that he's now more willing to defer when it comes to playing time, thinking, hey, maybe a few less reps every week helps me extend my career. And the Eagles all of a sudden have Javon Hargrave and Jordan Davis and Milton Williams. We were talking about depth in the first segment. That's not a concern at defensive tackle. Now, 2023, then the Eagles are going to have to make a decision because Fletcher's now on the year-to-year plan, sort of like Jason Kelsey and, for a comparison's sake, and Javon Hargrave's in a contract year. Can you pay them both next year? Probably not. Or you can. We were just talking about the Rams.
But the Rams pay everybody. Yeah. So the Eagles could if they want to, but they want that big bill to come due.
Yeah, they probably don't want to. You want to allocate your resources better at a particular position. So to me, it comes down to who do you want And in a lot of ways, it's, who plays better this year, Fletcher or Javon Hargrave? Who's a better fit with Jordan Davis, Fletcher or Javon Hargrave? It might come down to that.
I would pay Javon Hargrave. That would be me. I would just pay him. I think his career is on the upswing. I think he benefits from Jonathan Gann's defense. And again, who knows if Jonathan Gann's going to be here in 2023 or not? He might get a head coaching job. But I still think Javon Hargrave is a player who's on his way up. I think you could give him another 3-year deal. You're going to get a player like that in the prime of his career. And I would say the Fletcher Cox, I know it's tough to negotiate with Todd France because, look at the clients he has. The guy's made over $40 million in his agent career for a reason. But I'm looking at it as, okay, yeah, we can keep both. Pay Hargrave and say to Cox, hey, look, here's a 1-year deal. We feel you are worth this. We feel you have been valuable to our franchise. And maybe Fletch takes it if he just doesn't want to move or doesn't want to play for another team. Maybe he'll be like Brandon Graham and want to play his whole career with the Eagles. Who knows what he's thinking? But I would definitely pay Javon Hargrave first after this season. Go to Fletcher Cox, see what's up. He knows the situation. He knows Jordan Davis is going to start in the future. It's just, will there be a pride thing? Will there be, hey, look, maybe I can go play somewhere else and be a starter and get that money? Fletcher Cox is going to have a lot of decisions to make after the 2022 season, and hopefully he stays with the Eagles, but I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of interested teams in his services.
And, I should throw it. Milton Williams is a big part of this as well because, I'm talking 2023. Do you want to get him on the field more? How is he improving? Where is he in his career? Because if you want to get him on the field more, well, then, there's only, like Nick Sirianni and Shane Steichen say, there's only one football on offense. There's a limited number of reps. Jordan Davis is going to be there. So how much do you want to play Milton Williams? Where is he in his career? That'll factor in as well.
Right. And then getting back to the same old. How do you judge if Milton Williams is going to be better going forward than a declining Fletcher Cox, a holding his ground Hargrave? Well, you can judge that in practice and how he's competing against his teammate. Yeah. Oh, that's right. They don't use 11 and 11 to practice. Developmental periods, developmental and or evaluate your own talent for how much you're going to use them going forward. I hope they've got a really good football crystal ball, the Eagles coaching staff, because they're going to be making a couple of decisions over the next couple of years here without as much empirical evidence as other teams have. I do want to ask you another question about a player who was made available yesterday, and that's Isaac Seumalo. John, you already tipped your hand that Isaac isn't quite 100%, but in the very little use that they have for the offensive lineman in 7-7, he was lining up as the starting right guard. You commented earlier that last week it was veteran dictated. The guys who have been there, done that, were the ones who were put into the starting lineup, or however you determine that in the different type of practices the Eagles were running. But Isaac was the guy at right tackle above others who have proven that they may be able to step in there and take the job. Isaac spoke to you guys yesterday. Other than he's still rehabbing and not quite 100% yet, he all good with moving to the right-hand side fully this year?
Yeah, that's not a problem for Isaac. And he brought up, that preseason game when he was a rookie where he played every single position in one game. And I think people forgot he played right tackle against Baltimore late in his rookie season. He
played very well that game too.
Yeah. He was the extra tight end when they would go to 13 personnel at times. He might be their most versatile offensive lineman. Not that you prefer to move sides, but he understands it, and he understands, that's part of it. Talk with Jordan Mailata a lot. Yeah, Jordan, in theory, you want to keep him at left tackle no matter what happens because he's so talented. But when you are as versatile as he is, and he doesn't care, he's like, yeah, I'll go play right tackle. They're like, okay, go play right tackle, and we'll put in the guy who isn't comfortable playing right tackle, Andre Dillard, when Lane Johnson went away. That's what happened last year. So when you are versatile, they tend to take advantage of that. And I think that's part of they don't even, normally you think about these things, right? You say, well, what do we do if we keep Landon Dickerson in left guard? How does that affect us? How does that affect Isaac, who is a pretty good left guard himself? The Eagles are like, he can play right guard. And they're not even concerned about it, and they shouldn't be concerned about it. He's embraced it. He understands it. I think the bigger issue we got from Isaac yesterday is, that was a really serious injury, and he had 2 surgeries, which is normal. We asked him, is that the normal way they do this thing with the Lisfranc fracture? They put metal in, they have to take it out, which are the 2 surgeries. The second one came in February, so it wasn't that long ago, because he was injured, I think, week 3 when he had, and that was the first surgery, obviously. So he admitted he would not be cleared right now by the doctors. And we asked him, are you going to be a full go for training camp? And he said, in his mind, he is, but we again pressed him, what about in the doctor's mind? And he admitted that's more touch and go. So that's going to be one of the big stories when the Eagles report and when they're on the field for the first practice. Is Isaac Seumalo a full go, or is he still coming back from what I said is a very, very serious injury?
And what's scary about all this is, for Isaac Seumalo, there's a guy behind him that can take that job in Jack Driscoll. And I think you and I have both said it before, John. He's a better guard than tackle. He is. Yeah, I mean, from what I'm hearing, from what I've seen, just watching film, I think Jack Driscoll could be a starting right guard in this league, or a starting guard somewhere. But
yeah, and the Eagles think that as well, Jeff. I mean, I think the plan is Jack's going to be the starter in 2023. So, there's some thought, well, why not start now? And, the health, obviously, of Lane Johnson's going to be a big part of this as well, because Jack can play right tackle. That I want to move Jordan Mailata off left tackle if they have to replace Lane Johnson. If they have an option that's capable, maybe they don't. So a lot of things change with the depth of having Jack Driscoll, Andre Dillard, and Isaac Seumalo, because all 2 of the 3 can play multiple positions, and then you could start sliding things around the best way you want to. And then we're talking about depth. We didn't even get to safety. We keep talking about safety. Well, they might need to add somebody there. And, where do you have depth on your roster that you could potentially trade? Probably more than anything else, the offensive line.
Agreed. If they're going to make a deal for a safety, it'll probably come in a deal with an offensive lineman. My guess would be Dillard more than Isaac Seumalo, but that's just a guess on my part. All right. Another guy who spoke yesterday, John, which I wanted to get your take on, was Dallas Goedert. And he was one of a couple over these last 2 weeks who've made Jalen Hurts sound like Patrick Mahomes. Just saying, maybe a little overstatement, 7-on-7 on how good a quarterback can look. But I do have specific Goddard questions. He's a big part of the offense this year. He stepped up after they traded Zach Ertz, and we knew the trade was coming, and it took several weeks before Howie got what he saw as an acceptable return of value. And then all of a sudden he was the TE1, with the drop-off being significant to TE2. They haven't upgraded TE2. It's the same group that was here last year, other than Calcaterra in the draft, who is a receiving tight end, not necessarily a blocking tight end. With the Eagles' overall attitude of, we need to protect ourselves against injury, will Goddard be out there for 85, 90, 100% of the plays? How much is he going to play? Or do they go down the road of, we really need this guy, we can't afford to get this guy hurt, when we've got a blocking play we need to specifically, everybody knows that we're running the football, we just need to block it up? Do they try and get Goddard off the field? how far are they going to go to protect the valued asset that Dallas Goedert is?
Well, I think he's going to play a ton when they get the regular season. Before then, I don't think he's going to play at all. He's in the you're not going to see him in the preseason at all. He's going to be in the bubble wrap. He'll be getting his work in the joint practices like most of the starters. But yeah, once you go, you got to go. I mean, he's going to be on the field a ton. You mentioned the tight end position has really changed over the years to where you have these receiving tight ends, and there's very few old school tight ends that can do both. Dallas is one of them. George Kittle's probably the best. Um, when you talk about the backup, that to me is more interesting though, but for this reason. As you mentioned with Calcaterra, Jody, and even Tyree Jackson, if he gets healthy, they're like strictly receiving tight ends. I mean, they'll get in front of somebody, but they're not moving anybody off the line of scrimmage. They're not blocking anybody. They're not doing anything that's going to affect the defensive end other than getting in their way. So you almost feel the need, if they're going to be on the field, to have Dallas Goedert in line. And I've always said he's such a good receiver. I don't want to waste him in line all that time. And then you start talking about, well, do you put Jack Stoll in there in 12 personnel just to block and let Dallas be the seam receiver, the slot, the flex, whatever you want to call it. I would lean more towards that, to be honest. I want Dallas Goedert as a receiver. Now, the Eagles might look at it as, we have A.J. Brown now. We have Devontae Smith. We only have one football. And, maybe they'll say, hey, let's get Dallas blocking because he's our best blocking tight end. It's an interesting decision for the coaching staff. But I think he's so good. I said right now, I'm going best pure football player in the Philadelphia Eagles. Not most valuable, because obviously the quarterback is more valuable, edge rushers. Best pure football player at his particular position on the Philadelphia Eagles is Dallas Goedert. That's my opinion.
Do think at the end of the season, at the end of this year, when we're talking best tight ends of football, we're going to be mentioning Travis Kelce, George Kittle, Mark Andrews, Dallas Goedert. I really do believe that. I think he took that big of a step last year. And I think he could take an even bigger step this year with Devonta Smith, with A.J. Brown. And he even said that on Saturday at Smith's softball game when he had his media session, and basically said, look, I'm going to have opportunities and I got to take advantage of them. And no one mentioned about his drops or anything like that. It's, he's just said he's going to put in the work. And I don't think the Eagles are worried about a backup tight end. And maybe you and I are a little more concerned, John, but I also have to remember that their shift in philosophy is now they want to run 11 personnel all the time if they can. It's 12 personnel. That seems to be a thing of the past now for them. That was the Doug Pierce thing.
Hey, I'll tell you what, though, Jeff, because A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith weren't there, as I said yesterday. Now, in and out, popping in, popping out. They started 7-on-7s in 12 personnel.
There we go.
Dallas Goedert and Jack Stoll. So things can change very, very quickly in the NFL. We saw it last year. They wanted to run 11 personnel last year. They couldn't. They weren't successful. They shifted gears. And I give Nick Sirianni a lot of credit for that, by the way, because I think a lot of coaches in this league pound the square peg in the round hole. And I want to do this. I want to do this. And if you don't have the talent to do it, you probably shouldn't be doing it.
I always thought it was coincidental too last year. Nothing against Zach Ertz or anything like that, but it seemed like when they had the mini bye after the Thursday night game, they traded Ertz, and they were starting to run the ball a lot more in that Raiders game. They just fell behind early, and they garbage. But,
and then Miles got hurt.
Yeah, exactly. And then everything kind of changed.
All right, let me run this by both of you guys. Nick Sirianni spoke yesterday. You may get more background on the coach coming up here shortly in the future, John. he didn't give the day, I should say the game, the date, the game, same thing, that Shane Steichen became the unquestioned play caller. He did say it had to start at some place because we know that Nick was calling the plays at the beginning of the season. And then both he and Steichen said at some point last year, Steichen became the main play caller. And that's the way they've set it up to go forward this year. He didn't give what game that was. What game do you think it was, J Mac?
I think it was the Detroit game, which obviously was very successful. You know, one of the things with Nick is kind of ballsy for doing this is there are going to be a lot of people who point to the least common denominator and say, when Nick was calling the plays, the Eagles sucked. And when Shane was calling the plays, the Eagles were really good. And look, I mean, that's tough to swim against. That's tough to be the salmon swimming upstream against that stuff. The context is obviously the game plan is there. Nick puts it together. That's his favorite part of the job. All these things are pre-planned, you know, the openers, the third down menu, the 2-minute offense, the hurry up offense. That's what the big play call sheet is about. And then you're obviously going through the menu of plays. So it's ballsy for a young coach to do that, especially when he was doing it. And remember, the two advertised things about Nick Sirianni, who wasn't known to a lot of people and came in last minute and won the job essentially out of the jaws of, you know, Josh McDaniels, which the Eagles should be thankful for. He won over Jeffrey Lurie with his personality and his offensive resume and his ability to be the play caller. He was brought in to be the play caller. The Eagles thought he was an innovative guy. And all of a sudden, we're talking week, whatever that was, week 7, week 8, he's giving up play calling. That's that you don't see young coaches do that, especially in markets like Philadelphia, where there will be people saying they were bad when Nick was calling the plays and they were good when Shane was calling the plays. And, you know, a lot of this also, guys, has to do with Nick wants to help his friend, you know, and he even mentioned, you know, if Shane does a good job, he's probably going to be a head coach in this league. And he wants to get Shane Steichen a head coaching job. And guess what? It's harder to get a head coaching job as a coordinator if you don't call the plays.
True.
There's a quarterback tomorrow. I'm going to be picking his brain a bit here. I'm talking Justin Herbert tomorrow, and every time I talk to him, somehow Shane Steichen gets involved. And Herbert loves Shane Steichen. He said, Steichen's the reason why I am what I am right now. All the stuff he taught me. He said he was a great teacher. He didn't call him an innovator, but he said, I wouldn't be shocked if, you know, he was calling plays or, you know, for the Eagles at one point, because I think he was doing that in Los Angeles. I'm going to clarify with him tomorrow.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah. So, but overall, I'm curious to hear what an all-pro quarterback essentially thinks of, hey, what's he going to do for a guy like Jalen Hurts?
Yeah, and, you know, Shane, Nick also mentioned, you know, if Shane gets a head coaching job, then he'll revisit it, and maybe he'll have to start calling plays again. But he made it very clear that he had tremendous respect and confidence in Shane Steichen. And I do think a lot of it is to elevate the status of a guy he respects and a guy he wants to help. And they both do the job. So I don't think the actual mechanics. I think the problem was the convoluted aspect of the original plan. I think that's what they should be criticized for. You know, to have that extra Nick Sirianni, I'm going to tell the play to Shane Steichen and Shane's going to give it to Jalen Hurts. That to me is dumb. Right. I'm flat out saying it's an unnecessary step. You got 40 seconds. people don't realize how big you're watching on TV. You say, why isn't he doing this? That stuff happens quickly. You got 87 people in your ear. You got to talk to different people about different parts of the game. It just didn't make sense. And that part, I think they deserve criticism for. This part, I don't think it's that big of a deal.
And if he gets his buddy a leg up, more power to him.
Yeah.
I'd be more worried about just winning football games than helping my pal get himself into a status
I'm not saying
coach, but that's just me.
I'm not saying that's the reason. That's part of the reason. I'm not saying if he didn't think he could do it, he's not going to try to get his friend a job. He thinks he can do it, but I think that's a sort of fringe benefit of doing it as well.
If you're telling me it's a residual effect, okay, then I'm good with it.
Yes.
But if it is one of the driving forces, no. Nick, you need to just worry about one thing: making good calls for the Philadelphia Eagles, not how your buddy and how your pal looks. All right, last thing, J-Mac. Anybody give any hints as to what they're going to do with their 6 weeks of downtime? We started this talking about the NFL is a 365 a day job, that there's no insurance salesman during the off season in the NFL anymore. Anybody got anything specific planned that is football related that might not be directly tied to the Philadelphia Eagles?
Dallas, I mentioned earlier, confirmed he's going to go to tight end university again, which is in Nashville. They started it last year. I think it was Kittle, Kelsey, and Greg Olson started it. And he's going to be a big part of that for the second consecutive season. Davion, we didn't talk to that about him, but Isaac is mentioned. He's not taking any time off because he's got a rehab. He's trying to get full clearance for week one. Isaac said he's going to be working out with Lane, I believe, here in his bro barn in South Jersey when Lane gets back here. And Jalen Hurts is going to work. You know that. And everybody's, you're going to see it.
JJ and Devonta with them.
Yeah. But as far that was about it as far as the off season. And guys need a vacation. I mean, they should take a week or two, but don't take 6 or 7.
Right. Downtime is downtime, but before you know it, training camp will be here in less than 6 weeks. Johnny Mac, I will talk to you mañana right back here. Thanks for
all right. And thank you guys for being helping and being so kind. I appreciate it.
Well, shoot, if the Eagles head coach is going to go to that kind of level to get Nick Sirianni popped up, you don't think we're going to do the same thing for you? Come on. I think of my buds as much as Nick Sirianni does. Jay,
now, Tom, will it be the same as like when Carson Wentz would get a bunch of you guys in the room and just pour his guts out?
It is like that. Yeah.
All right.
We shall see.
It is like that.
Jim McMullen will be back here with us tomorrow. He's heading down to the NovaCare complex today. Jeff Kerr is going to stick around with me. We still got an hour to play on Birds 365. Keep it where you got it.